Have you ever felt like your body was trying to tell you something, but no one ever taught you how to understand its language? You wake up exhausted even after a full night's sleep. Your patience feels thinner than it used to be. The scale seems to climb no matter how carefully you eat. Your emotions rise and fall like waves you cannot control. You begin to wonder if this is just what happens after 30, if this is simply part of being a woman. But what if these symptoms are not random, not weakness, and not something you are meant to silently endure? What if they are signals, clear, intelligent messages from a body designed for balance, but trapped in imbalance? For many women, the years after 30 bring subtle but powerful hormonal shifts. Estrogen, one of the most essential hormones in the female body, plays a role far beyond reproduction. It influences metabolism, brain chemistry, cardiovascular health, bone strength, mood regulation, and even how your cells produce energy. When estrogen is balanced in harmony with progesterone, the body operates with remarkable precision. Cycles feel predictable, emotions feel manageable, energy flows more consistently. But when estrogen becomes dominant, when its levels are too high relative to progesterone, the entire internal rhythm begins to shift in ways that are often misunderstood. Estrogen dominance does not necessarily mean that estrogen is excessively high on a lab report. It often means that progesterone has dropped, while estrogen remains steady or fluctuates unpredictably. This imbalance creates a state where estrogen's powerful effects go unchecked. The result can look like intense PMS, breast tenderness, bloating, stubborn weight gain around the hips and abdomen, heavy or irregular periods, anxiety, irritability, and deep fatigue that feels both physical and emotional. These symptoms are not imaginary. They are not personality flaws. They are biochemical signals. Modern life quietly fuels this imbalance. Chronic stress raises cortisol, and elevated cortisol can suppress progesterone production, because both hormones share the same building blocks. When the body is constantly in survival mode, it prioritizes stress response over reproductive harmony. Sleep deprivation disrupts the delicate hormonal orchestra that relies on circadian rhythm. Processed foods and excess sugar create insulin spikes that interact with estrogen pathways. Environmental toxins, often called xenoestrogens, mimic estrogen in the body and bind to receptors, amplifying its effects. Even a sedentary lifestyle reduces the body's ability to metabolize and detoxify excess hormones efficiently. Over time, the cumulative effect of these factors shifts the internal environment away from balance. Dr. Felice Gersh has often emphasized that hormones are not isolated chemicals acting independently, but are part of an integrated, intelligent network. Estrogen communicates with the brain, the gut, the immune system, and the cardiovascular system. When estrogen is imbalanced, it is not just the menstrual cycle that suffers. The mind may feel foggy, anxiety may intensify without clear explanation, motivation can decline. The body may cling to weight as if it is protecting itself from an invisible threat. Understanding this interconnectedness transforms the narrative from blame to awareness. It shifts the question from "what is wrong with me?" to "what is my body trying to restore?" Weight gain associated with estrogen dominance often feels particularly frustrating. You may exercise more and eat less, yet the results remain minimal. Estrogen influences how fat cells grow and where fat is stored. When levels are disproportionately high relative to progesterone, the body can favor fat storage, especially in areas traditionally associated with female distribution. At the same time, chronic stress and poor sleep impair insulin sensitivity, making it easier to store calories as fat rather than burn them as energy. The body is not betraying you. It is responding to signals it interprets as imbalance. Mood swings and anxiety are equally profound. Estrogen affects neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine, which regulate mood, motivation, and emotional resilience. When estrogen fluctuates unpredictably or dominates without sufficient progesterone to provide calming balance, emotional stability can feel fragile. Small stressors may feel overwhelming. Thoughts may race at night. A sense of unease can linger without obvious cause. These experiences are deeply real, rooted in physiology, not weakness. Fatigue, too, becomes a silent companion. Hormonal imbalance disrupts mitochondrial function, the process by which cells generate energy. Add chronic inflammation triggered by processed foods and environmental toxins, and the body's energy reserves deplete even further. You may push through the day on caffeine and determination, only to collapse into exhaustion by evening. Yet despite the fatigue, restful sleep remains elusive, perpetuating the cycle. The most important realization is that estrogen imbalance is not a personal failure. It is a reflection of a world that often pulls women away from biological alignment. It is the cost of constant pressure, environmental overload, and disconnection from restorative rhythms. But within this realization lies empowerment. When you understand the root cause, you gain the power to respond intentionally. Awareness becomes the first step toward restoration, and knowledge becomes the bridge between confusion and clarity. There is a moment, often quiet and deeply personal, when a woman begins to sense that something more serious may be unfolding beneath the surface of her daily symptoms. At first, the signs seem manageable: slightly heavier periods, a little more irritability, a few extra pounds that refuse to disappear. But as months pass, the patterns intensify. The anxiety becomes sharper. The exhaustion becomes heavier. The cycle becomes more unpredictable. And in that space between frustration and fear, a powerful question begins to form. What if this is not temporary? What if this imbalance, left unaddressed, is shaping a future I cannot yet see? Estrogen dominance is not only about how you feel today, it is about the long-term terrain of your health. When estrogen remains unopposed by adequate progesterone for extended periods, the body's tissues respond. The uterine lining may thicken excessively. Fibroids can develop. Breast tissue may become dense and tender. Inflammation quietly rises beneath the surface. The metabolic system shifts toward fat storage and insulin resistance. The brain, exquisitely sensitive to hormonal signaling, may experience changes in mood regulation and cognitive clarity. What begins as PMS can evolve into chronic discomfort, and what begins as mild anxiety can deepen into persistent emotional unrest. The suspense lies in how silently this progression can occur. Hormonal imbalance rarely announces itself with dramatic alarms. Instead, it whispers through symptoms that are normalized by culture. Women are told that suffering is part of womanhood, that exhaustion is expected, that mood swings are simply personality traits. Yet the body is not designed for chronic distress. It is designed for dynamic equilibrium. When balance is disrupted, the consequences accumulate gradually, like small cracks in a foundation that go unnoticed until the structure feels unstable. Dr. Felice Gersh has consistently highlighted that estrogen is profoundly protective when balanced. It supports cardiovascular health, enhances insulin sensitivity, and nourishes brain cells. However, when estrogen signaling becomes excessive or poorly metabolized, those same pathways can contribute to oxidative stress and inflammation. This dual nature is what makes hormonal balance so critical. Estrogen itself is not the enemy. Imbalance is. The goal is not suppression, but harmony. One of the most overlooked contributors to this imbalance is the liver's role in hormone metabolism. The liver processes estrogen so it can be safely eliminated from the body. When the liver is burdened by processed foods, excess alcohol, environmental toxins, and chronic inflammation, estrogen clearance becomes less efficient. The hormone recirculates, amplifying its effects. At the same time, the gut microbiome influences how estrogen is reabsorbed or excreted. An unhealthy gut, shaped by poor diet or prolonged stress, can further intensify estrogen dominance. Suddenly, the issue is no longer isolated to the ovaries. It involves the entire ecosystem of the body. Stress remains one of the most powerful disruptors. In a state of chronic stress, cortisol stays elevated. Progesterone, often called the calming hormone, competes for the same precursor molecules used to produce cortisol. When survival takes priority, reproduction takes a back seat. Progesterone levels decline, leaving estrogen unbalanced. The mind feels wired yet tired. Sleep becomes fragmented. Cravings intensify as the body searches for quick energy. This cycle reinforces itself, deepening the imbalance. There is also the emotional dimension that few discuss openly. Hormonal imbalance can alter how you perceive yourself. Weight gain challenges confidence. Mood swings strain relationships. Fatigue reduces productivity, leading to guilt or self-criticism. Over time, a subtle narrative forms, "Something is wrong with me." This narrative can be more damaging than the physical symptoms themselves. It disconnects you from your body instead of inviting you to understand it. Yet within this tension lies an awakening. Suspense transforms into possibility when awareness replaces confusion. The realization that estrogen dominance is influenced by lifestyle factors means that change is possible. Nutrition that stabilizes blood sugar reduces insulin spikes and supports hormone balance. Prioritizing sleep restores circadian rhythm, allowing the endocrine system to recalibrate. Strength training improves insulin sensitivity and enhances metabolic resilience. Mindfulness practices lower cortisol, preserving progesterone levels. Small, consistent shifts can gradually reshape the internal environment. The body is not static, it is responsive. Cells regenerate. Hormone receptors adapt. Inflammation can decrease. The liver can improve its detoxification efficiency. The gut microbiome can rebalance. The nervous system can move from chronic fight or flight into parasympathetic restoration. None of these changes occur overnight, but they do occur with intention and persistence. The deeper truth is that estrogen imbalance is a call to realignment. It asks you to evaluate how you are living, how you are resting, how you are nourishing yourself, and how you are responding to stress. It invites you to step out of autopilot and into conscious stewardship of your health. Rather than fearing what may happen if imbalance continues, you can focus on what becomes possible when balance is restored. This is the turning point. The symptoms that once felt like punishment become information. The anxiety that once felt random becomes a signal. The weight that once felt stubborn becomes a message about metabolic adaptation. You begin to see your body not as an adversary, but as an ally seeking equilibrium. And in that shift of perception, empowerment replaces helplessness. The future is no longer something quietly unfolding beyond your control. It becomes something you actively shape through daily choices that honor your biology and your well-being. The most powerful transformation begins the moment you decide that your symptoms are not inconveniences to suppress, but signals to respect. Healing hormonal imbalance is not about chasing perfection or forcing the body into rigid control. It is about restoring communication with the intricate intelligence that has always existed within you. When you begin to understand that estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, insulin, thyroid hormones, and neurotransmitters are engaged in a continuous conversation, you realize that every choice you make either disrupts or supports that dialogue. The path forward is not extreme, but it is intentional. Balance starts with nourishment that stabilizes the metabolic foundation. Whole foods rich in fiber help the body bind and eliminate excess estrogen through the digestive tract. Cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts contain compounds that support healthy estrogen metabolism. Adequate protein provides the amino acids necessary for hormone production and neurotransmitter balance. Healthy fats from sources like avocados, nuts, seeds, and olive oil support cell membrane integrity, allowing hormone receptors to function properly. When blood sugar remains steady, insulin levels stabilize, reducing one of the key drivers of hormonal chaos. This is not about restrictive dieting. It is about fueling the body in a way that aligns with its design. Movement becomes another pillar of restoration. Strength training builds lean muscle, which enhances insulin sensitivity and supports metabolic resilience. Moderate cardiovascular activity improves circulation, delivering nutrients and oxygen to tissues while assisting detoxification pathways. Gentle movement practices such as yoga or stretching calm the nervous system, lowering cortisol and preserving progesterone. The goal is not punishment through exercise, but partnership with the body. Consistency matters more than intensity. Each session of movement sends a message of safety and vitality to your physiology. Sleep is perhaps the most underestimated healer. During deep sleep, the brain clears metabolic waste, cortisol declines, and hormonal rhythms recalibrate. Melatonin, often associated only with sleep, also plays a role in regulating reproductive hormones and protecting cells from oxidative stress. When you protect your sleep by reducing evening screen exposure, maintaining a consistent bedtime, and creating a dark, quiet environment, you are not indulging in luxury. You are participating in biological repair. Over time, restorative sleep strengthens emotional stability, sharpens cognitive clarity, and reduces cravings driven by fatigue. Stress management is not optional in the pursuit of hormonal balance. Chronic stress is the silent architect of progesterone depletion and cortisol dominance. Mindfulness practices, breath work, journaling, prayer, time in nature, or simply moments of intentional stillness signal to the nervous system that survival mode can be turned off. When the body perceives safety, it reallocates resources toward restoration. Dr. Felice Gersh often emphasizes that the nervous system and endocrine system are inseparable partners. By calming the mind, you directly influence hormonal output. This connection transforms stress reduction from a vague recommendation into a biological necessity. Environmental awareness also plays a meaningful role. Reducing exposure to endocrine-disrupting chemicals found in certain plastics, cosmetics, and household products minimizes the burden of xenoestrogens that mimic natural estrogen. Choosing cleaner options when possible, filtering drinking water, and prioritizing fresh foods over heavily packaged products decrease the cumulative load on the liver. These changes may seem small individually, but collectively they reduce the background noise that confuses hormonal signaling. Equally important is the internal narrative you cultivate. When you stop viewing your body as broken and start recognizing it as adaptive, resilience grows. Self-compassion lowers stress hormones. Confidence encourages consistency. Patience allows the slow processes of healing to unfold without sabotage. Hormonal balance does not shift in days. It evolves over weeks and months of aligned behavior. There may be setbacks, fluctuations, and moments of doubt, but progress is rarely linear. The body responds to patterns, not isolated efforts. As balance returns, subtle shifts begin to appear. Cycles become more predictable. PMS softens. Emotional responses feel proportionate rather than overwhelming. Energy stabilizes throughout the day. Weight begins to redistribute or decrease as insulin sensitivity improves. Anxiety loosens its grip. These changes confirm that the body was never against you. It was waiting for conditions that support equilibrium. This realization carries profound empowerment. You are not a passive recipient of hormonal fate. You are an active participant in shaping your internal environment. The deeper lesson extends beyond estrogen. It speaks to the philosophy of honoring biology in a modern world that often pulls you away from it. It reminds you that health is not merely the absence of disease, but the presence of harmony between systems. It invites you to treat symptoms as teachers rather than enemies. And it affirms that knowledge, when applied with consistency, becomes transformation. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.